So I'm Rob McGregor. Um, I own and had started No Limit Engineering. We started in Southern California, and I'm not going to say I came from a hot rodder family. My dad was a car enthusiast. He was more into like Le Mans and Can-Am cars and things like that than hot rods. He and I together, we did some Bonneville racing early on, and when I was a teenager, and people always ask, that's the how did you get started and what like that. I was like 15. I started working for this guy doing landscaping, and he was kind of a biker hot rodder dude. And at the end of one summer, he couldn't pay me. He said he couldn't pay me anyway. I found out later he could have, but so he gave me this 56 Chevy pickup. Didn't run. Um, and it was really not that old. That was in like 1978 or 79. So, it was a 20-year-old car. So it wasn't that, it was in fair shape. I was super excited because I had a car. I didn't have a license, but I had this truck. So I just started working on it. I started doing stuff and trying to figure out how to get it running and whatnot. Uh, that ended up getting me to work at this machine shop down the street. I started working there. I just walked in and wanted a job. They wouldn't hire me. So I started cleaning, you know, and they couldn't get rid of me. So finally they were like, okay, we'll teach you how to strip cylinder heads if you just shut up and get out of the way. you know, and I kept working there. So I got my motor rebuilt. By the time I had a driver's license, the truck was a runner with a 327 in it and a 4-speed. And I still have that truck, and I kept it for a long time. And it's had several rebuilds and generations, been in a couple accidents. I mean, I was a kid, not so smart. So that's kind of where it all started. And that's one of the things that really changed my direction as what I was going to do in hot rodding. I was really into horsepower. We did some head porting. My dad and I built our own flow bench. It was pretty crude, but it told us what was going on. And I was going to college, and I was heading uh, up to school uh, and driving my 56 Chevy pickup. And I was late, of course, as I always was. So I was speeding, and I got to a big intersection. If you're in Southern California, you would know that like Foothill Boulevard and some of these, they're built to be rain runoff things. So if you cross them, they have big kind of whoops in them, where the rain would channel. And I thought I would make the light, and the guy in front of me starts getting on the brakes, and it was yellow. I don't know. I was probably going 70-ish in a 35 or 40 speed zone, and I downshift to third gear and start slowing down. And of course, the truck had all drum brakes, and I'd never considered that was a performance item. I didn't care. It didn't make horsepower. So, uh, and as I'm closing in on the intersection, I'm not going to stop in time. I downshift to second gear, right? And as I let the clutch out, the drive shaft, the front U joint just gives up. No way it's going to hold all that. So the drive shaft is just pounding between the pavement and the bottom of the truck as it's going around, right? And my foot's buried on the brakes, and I'm realizing I'm not going to stop. So I move over toward the kind of the turn lane where there isn't anybody, and I'm thinking the light's not even red yet. I might get across before I get hit from somebody coming from the side. And as I started to cross it, uh, and my foot's buried on the brake pedal, one of the brake lines snapped, like it just gave up, too much pressure, I guess, and kind of exploded. And it was pretty cobbled together, to be honest with you. I didn't have an e-brake. I had a 9-inch in the back, never needed to connect that, didn't make it go any faster, right? So the drive shaft spikes into the pavement and folds under the truck, snapped the pinion off the front. The back tires probably it felt like I was staring at the pavement, but it was probably only about 2 feet off the ground. And I coasted into some grape orchards, some vineyard orchards, plowing down these grapevines to a stop in the sand up there, and then promptly got out, looked at it, shook my head, had to thumb a ride up to school because I still had a chem test to take. Um, and on my way home, now I got to call a buddy who's got to bring a trailer, and it's this big, it becomes a disaster. You're young, you don't know how to do that stuff. It took us all day to get it back home, and then I really started thinking at that point, maybe there's something to this steering and stopping game that I got to look into. And the more I got involved, the more fascinated I was with the physics of making a car go around a corner. And so that's why we do what we do. So we operated in California for about 30 years. And really, when I started, uh, California, at least by outward views, was the car mecca. And that's because it's where the magazines were. You know, Peterson Publishing and McMullen Publishing were the first two to start that up. They were right in Anaheim. They were 30 minutes, 40 minutes from me. So, of course, what I found out was magazine guys don't like to work that hard. So if they can do a photo shoot down the street, they will not go to Texas, right? They'll do it down the street. So it seemed like all the cool cars were in California because that's where all the ones that were taking pictures of, because that's where the editors were, right? And they did, of course, they didn't want to work very hard, so they did what was close to them. But we were there for 30 years, and really, it was great. And we were there at the best time for hot rodding to be in Southern California. And the politics and business climate in California just got to the point it was a big struggle to stay there. And what we started to really notice was about 70% of everything we made that shipped out of our place crossed the Mississippi River. So there was a time, you know, in the early 2000s, you really start looking at that and going, I'm in Southern California where it's very expensive. And everything I ship is a Zone 8 ship, an expensive ship because it's crossing the Mississippi River. My math is not working out anymore, you know. And we were, my wife and I, she's originally from Virginia. She wanted to get closer back to her folks, and I was ready to leave. I'd had my fill of it, which was sad. You know, California was an awesome place for me to grow up, but it's not what it was then. So I was over it, time to move on, and so we came here. You know, people have asked me, like, you know, why didn't you get into the car part of it? You know, why don't I make parts for Camaros or Mustangs or other things? And we have in the past done a little bit of that. But for whatever reason, and it's probably because my first car was a 56 Chevy pickup, we're just truck people and we love old pickup trucks. And now trucks are really hot now. You know, the C10s and the F100 stuff is just super hot. And that's great for us. And we think it's really cool. And we're glad to see the market finally catch up to us. But we were truck people when trucks, you know, when they weren't the coolest thing. I didn't really care. We were just like, we're just going to make truck parts and people will love us or they won't. We don't. We're just going to do what we do, you know. And it's worked out well, so I can't complain. You know, we don't build cars and we don't do motors, and that's just not our game. So we have a lot of customers that are doing, you know, they're doing LS swaps, Coyote swaps, things like this. And the common practice is to do a Motec or a Holly, and so those get pretty involved, right? So we always have customers asking us, where is a simple plug and play? I'm putting a stock takeout motor in this, no turbos, no big power, no crazy cam. I just want to hook up like 4 wires and make it run. And when I think, you know, a year or so ago, Aces was pretty fresh, and a guy that I knew, JJ, was started working with you guys, and I've known him for a while. And if people don't know him, he's written a lot of books about how to do LS swaps and Coyote swaps and things like this, and he's a very knowledgeable guy. And I thought, you know, okay, if JJ's doing this, I got to call him and talk to him because this might be something I want to offer my customers. And we talked for a little bit, and sadly it's not here right now for me to show you, but I'm building a little square body pickup as a driver, kind of a townie car. And I wanted to use one of those so I know firsthand how it's working if I send it to a customer. So we got one of the kind of more basic plug and play kits from you guys. I was pretty impressed with the packaging. It came nice screen and whatnot, and we had it running in, I don't know, an hour and a half. And of course, we were all set. Fuel lines were all plumbed, and the exhaust was all done, and we were ready to put O2 sensors in it. But it really, the harness fit very well. It looks very clean. The initial program setup was super easy and intuitive, and we came to Aces as something that we might be able to offer. The advice to our customers is, if you're not going to do the full Holly Dominator or a Motec or some of these big, expansive, expensive systems, I mean, this car's got $10,000 worth of electronics in it. to make it run. And not everybody wants to go down that path, right? So where is a simple plug and play that a guy can put in his car and hook it up in a weekend and get it running, and it runs good, and the tuning is easy, and it self learns, and it, you know, simplified. So there's a market for hand built killer 750 horse NA LS motors, right? And there's a market for a pretty stock motor with a mild cam in it, right? And so those are different customers, and they want different things. And it's the same in the electronics end. There are customers that want all the crazy data log, and they want to be able to you know, interface with traction control and ABS and launch control and turbo timers and all this stuff. And then there's a guy that says, man, I'd really like to put a new LS or Coyote in my car and start it and have it run. So I think simplicity is a big part of it. Giving the customer, I'm big on giving my customers a chance for success. We put a lot of that thought into our chassis builds so that what we deliver, or suspension parts or anything that we make, I want my customers to be able to get it, put it on, and it works, and they can do the install without too much hassle and move on to the next thing and go down the road. You know, so having an EFI system that's really pretty much plug and play and kind of simple, you know, that gives them a good shot for success. Honestly, the first package that I got, I can't even remember what the issue was, but there was something that didn't match my motor. I made one phone call, and it's like I have an inside guy, but I didn't bother him. I just wanted to be like the regular customer to see what it was going to be like. I made one phone call. The guy says, no problem. I'll send you out the right parts, and I'll send you a call tag to pick up the ones that you don't need. So I think the customer service is really, really good. The tech support's really good. That's probably better than you get with some of the other big names. So I think you should give them a look. You know, we talked about Will Posey's Grip Autocross group, and I coined something the other day, and Will was laughing about it pretty hard. So he wanted to come to me. He says, hey, Rob, his first time down here, we went over the weekend down to Grip. What do you think? And I thought, man, you really got a good thing going on here. And I'm really happy to see a lot of NGs. And he goes, are you talking about the new guys? And I'm like, no grays. No grays. You got to get some people with no grays here doing this, you know? And he almost fell over laughing when he heard me say that. But it is true, you know, and so if a lower price point or making it easier helps a young guy get a hot rod or some modified vehicle up and running, that's where we need to be at. Because honestly, a lot of my stuff is price ranged out of the market for the entry guy. We try to keep it competitive, but we build a really good working part and it costs money. That's just how life is. But, you know, getting the NGs in, that's the key to the future, man. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome.